Hi, I'm indie fantasy author Melinda Kucsera, and in this episode of Fantasy, Lore, and More, we have Helen Garraway here, and she's going to talk about her book, Sentinals Awaken. So, welcome, Helen, and tell us about Sentinals Awaken.
Oh, thank you. I'm really, really happy to be here and happy to talk about my books anytime. Yes. So Sentinels Awaken was my debut novel, and I first started writing in about 2016. There was a whole slew of events that suddenly gave me time in an empty house and time to write, and I wrote the Sentinel series. Obviously, this idea had been bubbling for a long time, and it was just the opportunity to start writing. I'd never thought I would ever be a writer or an author, but this idea was there, and out it came in one whole series. And Sentinels Awaken was the first one, and it all sort of stemmed from this idea. When you're just in the environment. I was out walking in a local woods near where I live. It's quite ancient. I mean, they're hundreds of years old, really old and gnarled, and it's a nice characteristic place. And you were thinking, God, they've been there for so long. What if they could tell you what they've seen? What if the trees could talk? And that sort of regressed to what if someone was asleep in the tree, and then that became the idea behind there being somebody asleep or encased in this tree that gets woken many years in their future by a future generation. And that was the germ of the idea for Sentinels Awaken. And it's all around, it's an epic fantasy. It's an epic fantasy quest. And it's where this unassuming King's Ranger accidentally awakens one of these guardians that's been encased in the tree. And from then onwards, he discovers that there's treason, there's a new evil coming to attack their world. And he has the job of becoming the lady's captain. The goddess, has her captain who then commands the sentinels that he has to go and find and awake. And the first book is all really about him understanding what being the lady's captain is, what he needs to do, and learning how to actually awaken these sentinels, because the first one he awoke, he did it by accident. So he's not quite sure how he did it, but he did. So he now has one guardian out to help him against this forthcoming evil that he then needs to find more to help him protect his world and protect those that he loves. And that's really the start of the series. And the Sentinel series is now complete. I've written all 6 books. They're all published. And there are a couple of side novellas and a few short stories. If you signed up to my newsletter, you'll get access to the short stories. So it's a really complex, world. I mean, the world building is the piece I think I enjoyed the most, and building that environment for these characters to live in has been fun. And the stories just keep going, which is really wonderful, because there's so much to tell, and the characters have so much complexity to them that you can just keep writing stories. And although the series is complete now, I am now going back to the very beginning to explain how they ended up in the trees in the first place. So we've got a prequel coming, which is really exciting.
Do the trees move around? I'm
No,
asking
they don't.
because, like you, I'm an epic fantasy author. I started publishing in 2016, and I
No.
have enchanted trees as well.
Okay. They
And they
don't move
are,
around. No,
they're, yeah.
they are, well, they don't move themselves, but they can relocate but it takes a
Okay.
lot of energy, and they don't do it very often. So they can relocate, but they don't generally move away. They stay where they were originally planted, as such,
How
by
do they
the goddess.
relocate? I'm just curious if they really relocate the same way I do.
Well, it's just that they inwardly, they look inward, and then
I
they
see.
know where they're going, and they just translocate to the new place. So it's just like almost like it is transportation or
Mhm.
teleportation. They just move into the new location, but they don't do it very often because it's very exhausting. So they
I
stay where they are.
see.
And
My next, yeah.
they're usually collected around where the lady's guardians live. So the sentinels are the lady's protectors, but the world, she split into like 6 areas, like the shires or 6 cantons like you have in Switzerland. You've got the 6 parts of that country, and each one has a guardian who looks after the land. And it's that relationship between the lady looking over everybody, the land sustaining the people, and the people protecting the land, sort of thing. It's that combination of everybody looking after each other.
So the lady is like a queen, or
So she's the goddess. So
oh, the goddess.
her
Okay.
family created the world, and then most of them moved off disappeared, and there were just the two sisters left. So there's Leandri and Marguerite, and the two sisters were there to protect the world and ensure that the people could live their lives. And of course, that never happens. You never get to live peacefully. There has to be conflict. So it's more that then this new world, these new people, these ascendants wanted the power. Basically, they started playing with things like alchemy and magic, and thinking that they were more powerful and they should rule the world. So they wanted to remove the goddesses, and it's what the goddesses did to protect their world. And in a way, it was to their detriment because they then disappeared. But by what they did, they put the protections in place so that the evil couldn't take over. But then now, 3,000 years later, after that original battle, it's coming around again, and there's another evil trying to take over the world, and the remnants of the lady are the guardians that are asleep in the tree. So Jerrol has to awaken those in order to help protect against this new threat. And then the first book is sort of set in Vesperi, which is sort of a leafy, like the Shire. I live in the Shires in the Berkshire of the UK, in the south of England. You know, we've got our leafy Shires where it's all trees and rivers and all very beautiful. And then the books move through different parts of the world. So you've got about 4 different territories. So you've got the leafy Shires of Vesperi. And then in book 2, Sentinels Rising, we go into the deserts of Tyrolia. So then you get the nomadic tribes of the deserts moving around wherever the resources are. So the environment very much helps drive the feel for the book as well, I think. And then in the 3rd book, it's Sentinels Justice. We move north to Elothia, which is obviously the icy wastes and the mountains and the cold and the snow and things like that. And you've got the Grand Duchy, who's being influenced by the bad people and wants to go to war with everybody. And then that's sort of the opening trilogy for the first part. And then it moves 2 years later to book 4, and where something else begins. And the book 4 is more of a time slip, where it does go backwards and forwards between 3,000 years ago and the current world. So we get to travel quite a lot in different places, which is quite good.
That's cool. Is Jerrol still our main hero?
Yes.
We're still in his head in books 4 and
Yeah,
beyond.
up to 4, he's the main character, and he's in all of the books. But he's sort of, by book 4, I feel that he's reached his potential. You know, he's reached as far as he's going to go as the hero, though he's still there as like the Grand Chancellor. You know, he's still in control and managing people, but it's the people around him now that are driving the story, and his children are coming through. So we're after book 4, we're bringing in the next generation, which is quite nice because you get
so he's got staff.
Yes, he can delegate.
In books 4, he's like, you know what? I did the quest thing.
Yes, I saw the work. It's somebody else's head.
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, he still hits issues, and you know, now he's really dealing with the power of leadership and understanding leading a government and a country, and what that means. And don't let power go to your head, sort of thing. So it's that struggle to do the right thing for the better good, and not what you want to do for personal sort of thing. So he has like his challenge changes, and one of the Sentinels comes more to the fore, to the questy side of it. You know, as in, you know, as I said, the world is very much a balance between the goddesses who created it and then the land itself. And one of the goddesses actually bonds with the land, so the land becomes more sentient. And so you've got that balance then between a sentient land and the people who are living on it, and the goddess who is now at a distance because she had to destroy everything to save her world, sort of thing, but that banished herself and her sentinels. So her sentinels couldn't go with her, so they're encased in the sentinel trees, but she's no longer in the world, so she's a long way away. So it's how those sentinels and the people all work together to protect the land so that they can continue to live there. And the land is really part of it is there's an oath that protects the land. So it's how the land is really quite important in the whole story and the relationship with the land. And books 4 and 5 really focus on the oath and how the oath protects as well as the guardians. So yeah, so it keeps the story going. So it's really, really quite fun to write.
I just find it wild that we were both writing epic fantasy series about enchanted forests and taking them in similar but also different directions at the same time.
You'll write as the same prompt and you'll get 20 different stories.
No, I know, but like I mean, there've been people on here who did Enchanted Forest, but like not the way that I did it. And yours is the closest. You're still different, but it's still the closest to what I've done with it. which I just find very cool because, like, I never read your book. I didn't know you until today. I just find that so wild that we were going on similar lines and just didn't even know it.
I know.
There's so many parallels in what you said. My mind is just blown.
And also I think the fun thing is that because you have such a complex world, you can almost go anywhere. I mean, I'm most comfortable now writing in the world of Remagerin, which is the world that they live in, because I'm so familiar with it now. I think it's almost like family, or like I live there myself, because I know where everything is in relation to everything. I know how long it takes to get somewhere by horse or by boat or by cart. You know, it's like you could go there and travel yourself and actually experience it. So
yeah. I have one world that I've written all of my books in too.
Yeah, well, I could have kept going and going and going, and I might do a spin-off from the Sentinel series, but it came to a natural end, and I didn't want to write it for the sake of writing it. So it had to have a good reason and a good plot and a story to it. So in Sentinel's Destiny, that is the end of the Sentinel story. Then by then they've run their course. They're no longer really required. The world is different at the end of the Sentinel's Destiny as when we started in Sentinels Awaken. So that Sentinel story arc has completed. So I did complete the series there. But as I say, I'm going back to do the prequel, which I wrote while I was writing book 4, because book 4 was going backwards and forwards between the past and the future. I had to make sure my backstory would match and work in the timeline. So that was hard work, keeping the timeline straight and making sure that what was happening in the future was affected by what was happening in the past, and it all paralleled. But then I had half a book written, so that was really good for the prequel. But I might actually have to split the book into 2, because I'm already at like 140,000 words, and I'm nowhere near, and I'm thinking, I don't like holding massive books; they're too heavy, So I'm thinking I might need to.
And the plot, it gets hard to keep more than 100,000 words of plot in your head at the same time, and be able to like make sure that you're telling a coherent story, and that all the all the bits of structure that need to be there to hold up the story are there, and you've done all the things. And that's what I find. So I do the same thing. If it starts to get over 100,000 words, I'm like, okay, we need to go back. This is now too much for one book. Now it's got to be a duology. And then if 2 gets too long, okay, now it's a trilogy.
I started writing a different series because I wrote.
Oh, really?
I wrote a paranormal romance, or fantasy romance, because I was part of the USA Today bestselling Realm of Darkness anthology.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I wrote Soul Breather, which is a full length, like 95,000 words, full length novel for the anthology. And originally, I was just going to do a duology. I was just going to write 2 books. I had ideas for 1 and 2. And then my editor made me split my first book into 2, because she said I was trying to pack too much in to one book. So then it became a trilogy. And I'm currently working on the 3rd book. And I'm just like, I'm not sure if I'm going to get it all in the 3rd book.
Oh, no. Yeah. I have the same problem.
Growing, and it's another world, another complex world that you keep building out.
I'm finishing a trilogy right now, and book 3 is having the same problem. I'm like, no, this has to be a trilogy. You have to stop. We can do.
Oh, this is it. I want to stop at 3, because I've got at least 3 different epic fantasy ideas bubbling in the back of my head that I want to be writing, and I can't write those until I finish the Soul Mist. I've got to finish the Soul Mist series first.
But in my case, because all my books take place in the same world, I'm like, dude, like, we got to end the trilogy here. You can come back in other things. This is not the end.
Yeah, there's always an option to do something else.
You can come back in another story, but we got to end this. This has to be a trilogy. That's what we've been telling people it is. It needs to be one.
Yes.
When did the USA Today when did that set come out? I'm just curious, because I was in a USA Today box set. If you say 2019, I'm gonna scream, because it's like.
No, it's 2022.
Okay, because like we've been like parallel in other ways, and like this has been wild. This has been very wild. Yeah, I was in a USA Today box set that came out in 2019. Okay, so we did different years, but I just find it funny that we both did
the same thing.
Yeah, but you did a different subgenre of fantasy. I didn't. I stuck with epic fantasy. It was It was something that was supposed to be a trilogy that became a 5-book series. A trilogy in 5 books.
Yeah, sounds about right, doesn't
I'm gonna
it?
stop telling people it's a trilogy and just be like,
I
it
just
is
call it a
whatever
series
it
now.
is.
It's like the psalmist. I just called it a series. I didn't call it a trilogy. I
Yeah.
just called it a series, just in case.
When the book 3 is done and I'm certain it's a trilogy, that's when I will say it is a trilogy from now on.
Exactly. Yeah, you just never know. It's just, well, as you say,
No,
I mean, characters don't always do what you want them to do. And you
no,
start
never.
writing a scene that you think is going to go one way and it goes completely a different way. And it just opens this whole new area of things that you can now write about. And it's quite an amazing process when you think about it. It's just, yeah, it's just the ideas just keep flowing and you just keep writing. And then all of a sudden you've got another plot going and there's another thread that you've got to try and wind in somewhere.
Totally agree. Completely agree. And then because they made a different decision, the way you were going to go can't happen.
Yeah.
Characters switch sides, join forces with other people, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, the story I thought we were doing is not the story we're doing.
Yeah.
What are we doing now?
Yeah.
Somebody clue me in, please. Someone please tell the author. She needs to know. I feel like that's
Yeah.
what
That's
goes
what you
on
get for
sometimes.
writing strong characters, you see.
Yeah,
They have
that's
their own
true.
opinions.
That's true. That's true. So should we meet Jerrol? Do you want to
Yes,
do an
indeed.
excerpt now so that
Yeah.
we can? I think we've talked a lot about it. We should probably hear him in his own
Yeah.
words. Let him speak for himself.
For himself, indeedy. So, as I said, Sentinels Awaken was my debut novel. It came out in 2020, October 2020 was my first book came out. Because obviously I started writing in 2016, but then I had to learn all about the world of publishing and what to do with them. Because I never wrote them to publish, really. I wrote them for me because that's the type of book I love to read. And then I did get fed up with reading it on my laptop, and I thought, no, I want it on my Kindle or I want it, in a book. And then investigated on what to do with it and chose self-publishing because I didn't want to let go of it. I didn't want to give control to anybody else, so I kept it. So right, so I'm going to read from chapter 5. I thought I'd go a few chapters in because there are readings and things out there of chapter 1 in other places. So I thought we'd do a different chapter for a change. And this is really, so Jerrol, as I said, is a king's captain in the King's Rangers, and he's found treason at the highest levels. But before he's actually had a chance to do anything, he reports it to his commander, who reports it up through the chain. And then he gets arrested for treason. So obviously the corruption has reached the higher levels and he's actually arrested for treason. And now he's escaping and he's on the run. So we meet him trying to bring together the people to help him in his quest going forward to protect the world. So here we go. So we're in what's called Marchwood Watch, which is one of the areas of Vesperi, which is the country that we're in to begin with. So Jerrol slogged through the mud, wishing he hadn't bothered to visit the hamlet. That had been a waste of time and effort, but after a month on the road, keeping out of sight and dodging the local watch guards, he had wanted to find somewhere warm and dry, somewhere safe. The feeling of being watched had grown stronger, as had the fleeting glimpses of a dark figure intervening whenever he had found trouble. The only reason he wasn't hunting the person down was because he had an inkling of who it was, no matter how impossible the idea was. And so far the person following him had been intent on keeping Jerrol alive. Jerrol glanced down at himself. He could have been anyone, a slight man, drabbily dressed in a muddy cloak and trousers, both of which had seen better days. The edges of his rough shirt were frayed and trapped the water dripping down the threads in the soft rain. His boots were thick with mud and well worn. A nondescript hat was pulled down over his face, offering some protection from the elements. Over his shoulder was a burlap sack, which once had been waterproof, but was now sadly waterlogged. His cloak, though, was dark and warm. It was the item of most value to those who stalked him. Jerrol didn't acknowledge the 3 commoners who paused as they watched him struggle through the thick mud. He was an easy mark, a lonely figure who posed little threat, and would not be missed, focused on keeping his feet in the treacherous conditions. He sighed under his breath. If only they knew. In unison, they closed on him, daggers in hand, the squelching of mud betraying their position. Forewarned, Jerrol spun in one fluid move, the glint of steel carving an arc that sliced through the air. It came to a halt just in front of the lead man, a broad-chested, blonde-haired man who flailed desperately to avoid skewering himself on the vicious-looking blade. The man's feet slid out from under him at his sudden change in momentum. He landed in the mud on his backside as the sword skimmed the lank hair and came to rest at his throat. The man gulped, the silver scar on his chin prominent, his blue eyes wide with fear. Jerrol's gaze raked across the other two bandits as they slithered to an uncertain stop. I could pierce you like a suckling pick. Jerrol cleared his throat. His voice was low and gravelly, not having used it in a while. If you were worth the effort. There was a muted whir, and the man on the left cried out and dropped his knife. He hugged his hand to his chest as he stumbled away, squelching through the mud, and the other man scurried after him. Jerrol scanned the undergrowth. His silent protector was still following him then, appearing at opportune moments and as mysteriously disappearing before he had the chance to accost him. The stranger had been following him since he had left Old Vespers, so who was it? Show yourself. I know you're there, so you may as well come out. He looked back at the man, sinking into the gloopy mud, his sword following the man's slow descent as the glutinous muck restrained him better than any ropes could. A quick flick of the eyes confirmed that the others had turned tail and fled back into the dripping trees. Glancing back at the bushes, Jerrol waited, and the lean, silver-eyed man from the temple garden stepped out. His grey-green uniform was showing signs of wear and tear, but he looked nowhere near as disreputable as Jerrol. You've been following me for nearly a month. What do you want? The man's alert eyes flitted around them before returning to the man in the mud. I do the lady's bidding. The lady does not bid you kill innocent people. No, only those trying to kill her captain. Do you think we can continue this conversation somewhere dry and warmer? The man stuck in the mud asked through chattering teeth. Jerrol looked down and grinned. Well, if you will consort with bandits, what do you expect? He wiped his sword on his cloak and sheathed it, and then he began to chuckle. Not the rendezvous I was expecting, Jennery, he said as he reached out a hand to help pull his friend to his feet. The man released Jennery with an enormous squelch. Jerrol's grip inexorably pulled him up and out of the mucky suction. Jennery staggered as his legs took back his weight and trembled back to life. Looking down at his clothes, he scowled. Rendezvous? He barked with laughter. In this godforsaken place? You could drown in this, and no one would ever know. There are worse fates, you know, Jerrol replied as he moved to the firmer ground at the side of the road. Who is your friend? He won't stick me with one of those arrows, will he? Jerrol flicked a glance at the man watching them. His bow was still strapped to his back. Not unless you try to attack me again. Jerrol, Jennery followed him. What happened? Why all the secrecy? And why are we flailing about in all this mud? Jerrol turned away. Not here, he said. Let's get out of the rain first. There's a barn back a ways down the track. It's empty for now, and you can clean up. He gestured to the silent bowman. Will you join us? It wasn't much of a barn, more of a temporary shield from the rain. The screens were crude, a simple weave that wasn't tight enough to prevent the water from dribbling through the many gaps and collecting on the mud floor. The damp smell of saturated soil and drenched foliage permeated the air. Adjacent to the shelter was a lean-to providing just as primitive protection to a rug-covered horse, tethered to the wall. Jennery drifted over to the unfamiliar mare, admiring her sleek lines visible even under the grubby rug. He gently rubbed her nose in greeting. Where did he find you? He murmured as she tossed her head. Jennery sighed as he glanced around. A bit of luxury for a change. I'd forgotten what it was like. Jennery observed the bowman hovering by the door, half in and half out. He looked lean and dangerous, his face sharp and observant, his eyes never still, watching. He made Jennery feel on edge, as if something terrible was about to happen. A soft snort from behind him showed how much sympathy he was going to get. Stop complaining, Jerrol said as he threw over a bundle of cloth. Get changed. I want to know why you were with the bandits and attacking innocent strangers as well. He shook his head. I thought you had come in by the port road. I did come in by the port road, for what it's worth, Jennery grunted as he peeled off his sodden clothes. He used them to rub the mud off his muscular body, but they didn't help much. He gave up, dropping them on the floor. But the port was closed. The dockers were protesting about something or other, so I tagged on to a mule train. He struggled to get a clean shirt on over damp skin, the cloth muffling his voice. From the tone of your very short message, of your very short and uninformative message, I guess you didn't want to advertise our presence here. He ended with an upturn of his voice. He looked across the shelter at Jerrol, who was kneeling over a small fire pit, trying to coax a spark out of his flint. The man in the doorway gave a soft exclamation. He was watching Jerrol with a strange expression on his face, but January didn't think it was a conversation gambit, so he looked back at Jerrol, pausing as he watched the spark catch the flames grow. He continued with his report. The Chancellor posted guards at all of the entry points. He controls the wharves and the headlands. The King won't get support from the dockhands when their livelihood is at risk. Jerrol sighed as he rested the tin pot over the fire. I know, he replied, glancing up. The flickering flames slanted a soft yellow light across his face, which was drawn and strained. The dark shadows under his eyes made him look a lot older than his 22 years, but his grey eyes were clear and sharp. January's mouth tightened with concern. Jerrol was thinner, having lost weight in the few months they had been apart. The arms master had raised his slight build as a concern when he had first been inducted into the Rangers, but his wiry, stubborn constitution had always proved true. He rubbed his chin, remembering the one time Jerrol had managed to beat him in the sparring ring. The scar was an annoying reminder. Their foster mother Hannah had had conniptions sewing him up, berating both of them for their carelessness. What happened? He asked as he squatted next to the tiny fire and inhaled the intoxicating smell of coffee. Coffee, he exclaimed. You've got real coffee? The bowman shifted as the aroma reached him, his eyes brightening. Caffeine? He murmured. Jerrol grinned, the corner of his eyes crinkling as the tightness in his face eased. The last bag. I couldn't get any more, so make the most of it. I hope you brought some money with you, as I'm just about out. He handed a mug to the bowman, and then one to January. Bliss, January communed with his mug and sipped the steaming black coffee. It was pungent but smooth, and more importantly, hot. He relaxed as the warmth crept down his limbs. The unusual bowman still hovered in the doorway, drew his attention. Even with the coffee in hand, he held himself alertly. He looked as if he could deal with whatever came through the door. His silver eyes never stopped moving, continually scanning the surroundings. He wore an archaic silvery green uniform with a high-necked collar which made him look mysterious and foreign. The material shimmered even though there was little light. Who's this in the fancy get-up? January jerked his head at the man at the door. I don't know. Jerrol stared at the dark-haired young man. I first saw you in the temple in Old Vespers. Who are you? The man ducked his head. The lady bid me protect you. You have too many enemies, Captain. You're a sentinel, aren't you? Jerrol said slowly. The man stilled, and January gasped. He can't be. They all died. January blurted, and the man flinched, his face paling. No, they didn't. The lady encased her guards in the sentinel trees to protect them. You've been sleeping, haven't you? You're Balerion, one of the forgotten. The man deliberated, staring at Jerrol, his face unnaturally stiff. Yes, the lady named me Balerion. I am one of her guards. But that would mean he's over 3,000 years old, January gasped, his mouth dropping. He didn't believe it. It wasn't possible. Balerion stepped back, his eyes flittering around him. Why didn't you come forward before? Jerrol said, his voice calm. Balerion flicked a glance out of the doorway. If they didn't know I was there, it was easier to take them out. January scoffed, watching the man who looked ready to flee. And how many have you taken out? He asked with morbid interest. Balerion clamped his lips shut and turned away. Enough, January. Drink your coffee. January dragged his gaze away from the strange sentinel and looked at Jerrol. His friend was on edge and greatly worn down. His brown hair was much longer than usual. His uniform was grubby, mud-splashed, and unrecognizable, except for the badge on his tunic. For the third time, January asked, what happened? Shall I pause there? I keep going, but I'll stop there for now. And so this is really where he's collecting, obviously his friend January has turned up, and we get to find out who Balerion is, that he's actually a sentinel and that he's there to help Jerrol. So there you go.
Yeah, and that's the one that he freed by accident.
Yes.
And he's going to spend the rest of the book trying to figure out how to do that.
Yes, what did I do? How did that happen? Yes, because it takes him a while to figure out. So the trees are scattered across the country, so although there were many more sentinels, there are not actually that many trees in Vesperi. So it's like, where are they? So there are probably 12 to 15 sentinel trees in Vesperi, and there's a few in Tyrolia, but there aren't many anywhere else. So where did they go? So that's also part of how do we find them? Where are they? Or did
Oh,
they all die?
okay.
Which is what everybody thought. They all died. Yeah.
Oh, so there's not like, gotcha.
Yeah, so there's
Gotcha.
not a huge forest. I mean, it's a forested area. Vesperi is a leafy, but there are the sentinel trees are, you think of like a tall redwood. They're a
Yeah.
huge tree with a green canopy, very different to the surrounding trees. And there are a few of them, and they're the ones that the sentinels are in. And they were named after the sentinels because when the lady sundered the bloodstone at the end to destroy all of the ascendants 3,000 years previously, all the sentinels disappeared and these trees appeared instead. So they called them the Sentinals because the Sentinel guards all disappeared, and they will assume they all died as part of what the lady did. But they were actually encased
Okay.
in the tree, or some
Okay,
of them
because
were encased in the tree.
gotcha. Because like I just made all the trees. I I didn't scatter them about. The whole forest is yeah.
They all are.
Yeah. Well, in mine, like it that was like a punishment. Because
All
like
right.
there was like a not to get like super brief. There was a war, and some people, some factions decided that they were not going to continue fighting, and they left. And she got mad. she's a 1,000-foot tall magical tree who's sentient, and she got really mad that they abandoned her army. So
Oh wow.
she cursed them, and they
That makes
became
sense.
the
Yes.
yeah. So it's not quite
Quite the same. Mm-hmm.
yeah yeah
Yeah, yeah, no, mine is more was a protection to keep them safe because the goddess could not take them with her, so she protected them
yeah.
where she
Well,
those that she
it
could.
they're protective too in mine because they failed that. And she's like, well, you're just going to be protecting the country forever now.
Yeah, yeah.
You
This is your
promised
new
to protect. I'm holding you to it. um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean that's one of the short stories that I wrote that you get if you sign up to my newsletter via my website is the first few chapters from Valerian's point of view.
Mhm.
So you actually get to see it from him awakening, not realizing where he is, then finding out that he's 3,000 years in his future, and it's how he reacts and how he struggles with it all.
Oh,
Which is,
wow. That's
yeah.
got to be. I mean, is the place all that different that many years later? Or?
It is quite different. I mean, some of the words change, as in coffee. It used to be caffeine, but now it's coffee. So some of the words have evolved. Obviously, the world itself has changed, and as they
Mhm.
go around the world, they see how different it is to 3,000 years ago. So, of course, it's advanced and grown. There's a lot more people. There is, although it's still a low tech sort of medieval world. They have more things, than they did have 3,000 years ago, where it's more basic. So yeah, so that was quite fun trying to figure out how to evolve the world as well, and which pieces stayed still. Obviously not everything changes, but some things do.
I mean, I would think a lot of things
Well, when
would.
you think if you went from where we are now, we're in the year 2000, and if you think it'd be like 1,000 years pre AD, isn't it? It's like, that's a 3,000 year period for us. It's a completely
Yeah.
different world, isn't it? So I didn't change it that much because it's just, you still need an environment that you can move around in that you
Yeah.
recognize. So
Yeah.
I just changed names of places. Obviously, the weather ravages the landscape, so the landscape changes. There are things like that change over time because they would anyway.
Yeah, definitely. That's like wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I've not written anything from our well, just the queen of all trees. But she is a tree. She's been around the whole time watching things change and she
Well,
has
that was the
opinions.
idea, isn't it? The fact that these groups are here for so long and they can see everything that's happening. And they're saying that my sentinels are asleep. So when they wake up again, it's like, oh my God, what's going on? Yeah.
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 But
It's a
like
new world.
yeah, but like things don't change as much in mine because the country is like 90 something percent enchanted forest that's the wake well, it's awake in the summer and spring and the fall. In the winter it sleeps
Right.
for magical reasons.
Yeah.
But it's aware. It has rules. It knows if you're walking through it and if you don't follow the rules, you might get dead.
Yes. Yeah. Sounds about right.
Yeah, cuz
That's
like,
it.
they're now they have to make up for, if they do enough to protect it, maybe still release them and they can go on to their reward. Um, so they're kind of zealous about that. So things don't change as much because you can't cut the trees down. You can't really build roads unless the trees move. They can move, but I mean, they're not
You
going
have
to
to
want
persuade
to.
them to. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know that anybody would want to try that because they are so much larger than you, and they can, they have many branches. They have many. Yeah, it's hard to fight a tree that
Yeah.
is sentient and has some magic. I
Yeah.
don't
Well,
recommend
that's the
it.
fun of fantasy, though, isn't it? Having so
Yeah,
I have like the Darien, like there was a Darien mare that Jerrol came
yeah.
across, and they bond, so they compete telepathically because you
Oh
have that
wow.
that mental connection. So and they bond for life, sort of thing. So you're partners for life, and there are little it's quite funny. I have also another magical creature called an arafel, which is like a little kitten, a cross between a kitten and like a dragon. So they're fluffy, but they have wings and a scaly tail, big green eyes, and they're just really cute and adorable. And I based it off of my cat, who's called Alfie. So I took his name and played with the letters and added a couple and came up with arafel. And that's what my cute kitten like. They like little messengers, but they're very unreliable, So you might give them the message, but they might not deliver it.
Yeah, but that's so cute. I don't.
Yeah, so it's
Well,
nice to come up with some different ideas for
yeah.
different creatures.
I think
But then at the same time as finishing,
yeah.
editing and publishing the last couple of Sentinel books, I was writing Soul Mist. So then I was trying to write two
Right,
different
right.
worlds at the same time, and it's trying to keep your head in the right world at the right time with all of what the terminology is, or in Sentinels, instead of using hours, you try to use. I was using chimes, as in the chime of a clock. In Soul
Oh,
Mist,
I have the bells. The bells
well,
ring. They
yeah,
have a bell
trying to
system.
have some
Yeah, they ring
they're in
every
some
hour.
right hours. And when I looked back at some of my first copies, I still had hours in there. I hadn't even realised that I wrote the word hour because it's
Same. I had to
instinctive.
change it because
Yes,
everything is the bells.
yes,
The
chimes.
bells of Mount
Turns.
Eredren.
And in
Yeah.
Solomon series, it's turns, as in the turn of the clock or the turn of the hand. So it's turns.
Right,
And then you
right.
consistently got to remember to use turns and not chimes. Sometimes keeping it straight can be interesting.
Yeah, I haven't had to do that because most people are in the city that has the bells, and the stories that don't play place there, like they're out in the wilderness.
Yeah, so you don't really watch
It's
time anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's looking at the sun and going, well, I think that's I think that's the afternoon.
Yeah, exactly.
We've
Yeah.
definitely missed lunch.
Yeah. No wonder we're starving.
Yeah, like they're not trying to be like precise about the timekeeping. It's like it's the sun setting. Maybe we should make camp.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a little looser.
Yeah. And then I just released April 1. I just released a dystopian science fantasy.
Oh
So
wow!
this was just like a standalone idea that I had, and it's been sitting there and sitting there. And I thought, I just need to do something with it. I'd written it, the book was written. So it's just a case of finding time between the Sentinels and the Soul Mist just to get it sorted. And so I got it's edited, and I released that on April 1. Yeah. So again, I do love the idea of the world being sentient around you. So again, this one is very much a sentient planet. And again, although it's dystopian, it's not really science fiction apocalyptic. It's dystopian as in people who are in power denigrating and holding everybody else, oppressing everybody else. So it's that imbalance of those in power versus those who live on the planet, and the fact that they've harnessed the planet and trapped her, so she can't actually keep the planet going. They're destroying her, and as such will destroy the planet as well. So yeah, that was just another completely different idea that I happened to write, and it is now out there. So that's out there, and it's currently on Kindle Unlimited for 90 days, and then I'll just take it wide and put it up on all the stores.
Oh
Yeah.
wow! I love that when like authors can like write different series or different subgenres, because like I would literally just write epic fantasy in
I
the
just love
same world.
fantasy in general. I mean, epic is my first love, and as I say, I have
me
about
too.
ideas for about 3 different series to go, and I do enjoy writing the epic most. I just also write the other genres as well, which is quite funny. But yeah, I want to get back to epic fantasy. That's what I do enjoy writing.
Yeah, but then you have to, the more epic fantasy books you write in the world, the larger the lore gets, and the more you have to be like, okay,
I
where
have
are
a
we
spreadsheet,
going?
and there are many, many, many tabs on it. So I got my list of characters, so I know who's who, what they look like, how old they are, when they were born, if they die, you know. So I've got all of that just to be consistent, because I think that's the key thing across the series is being consistent. You know, you can't have blue eyes there and black eyes here sort of thing. You've got to be the same throughout all the books. So yeah, so I do have a big spreadsheet. Though, as I say, because you live it for so long, you do actually remember it. And although you might think, you'll get to a point and you're thinking, that's not right, but you don't know what's wrong. You know it's not right. So then you have to go back and check, oh, I said he had brown hair, but actually he's got blonde, you know? Whatever
Yeah.
you just know it just doesn't feel right, but you can't necessarily remember the exact thing that's not working. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And you're like, okay, what book did I mention this in? Because now I have to go back and find it so I can find the correct thing. Yeah, I can. I totally. That is definitely a pain that I had to deal with recently too, or like you don't remember.
But the good thing is you caught it. I mean, and it's just the fact that it strikes you as wrong and you think there's just something not right here. So you then need to go and investigate and make sure you've got all your facts right. And I'm very fortunate. I have an alpha reader who has been with me from my very first book. It was a friend of a friend, and he read Sentinels Awaken, which was my very first one. And he's read all of my books, and we've sort of grown together. Obviously, the more you write, obviously, the better you get, you know. So and he's had more experience of giving me feedback and ideas, and you know, he's always telling me, I need a fight, you've missed the battle, you need to write the battle. Things like that. So which is really good. So but we actually met face to face a couple of months ago, just before Christmas, and it was
wow.
And we actually sat and had a coffee, and we just talked for 2 hours solid about the books and the characters, and it just flew. You know, it's just because he knows my world as well as I do. It was amazing. It was really good just to really talk about why we wrote this, why it was this, you know, and how the characters developed and where they went. So yeah, that was really cool.
Oh wow, that's cool. I've met one of I have one beta reader. I've met her, but we're related. So it's not the same thing as like a total stranger. Yeah.
No, it's really cool that, and again, he's a guy, so like he can give me the guy's perspective.
Yeah.
So that's really good as well. And plus, he's got a family. Because there was some books in. There was a name I had for one of the ascendants, and he was Tractor, and he said it sounds like tractor, and of course, didn't even what's my name, but he says either a tractor or a dinosaur. And of course, because he has kids, that's the sorts of things he was thinking. You know, it struck him as. So I thought, I have to change that one then. So I had to change the name. So things like that you don't necessarily see or think of yourself when you're writing.
No, yeah. I hope I haven't done something like that.
I'm just glad he told me.
Yeah.
My reader's sitting there thinking, he's a tractor.
Now I'm like, oh my God, did I make some kind of mistake? Did I do something like that and not realize? You know?
That's why you need the independent set of eyes on it and not just your own.
Yeah, no, I would like to get somebody who like some independent set of eyes, somebody who's not related to me.
Exactly. And I say, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Just, I'd rather you tell me than I get it in my reviews or something that there's a great big plot hole or something doesn't make sense or I've missed some, just tell me and I can fix it before I actually publish it. So
yeah. Because that way I don't like at family events they'll be like, where's the next book? And I'm like, can I enjoy the family event,
yeah. Unfortunately, I do have I did get one of my family, they're reading through them, but they're actually slow readers. She says, you're publishing them too fast. I haven't finished the second one yet. So that's fine, you're in a good position. At least they're published. You don't have to wait for them. You can just go on to the next one.
Exactly. Like that's they should be happy that there's more to read. Yeah. I get that too because I write. Well, you published quite a few books, and I've been publishing since 2016, so there's 24 of them out there.
When you stop and step back and look at this, it just amazes me that I've written that many books. It's just
I know.
It's just I think, where did all the ideas come from, and how did I get it all into a plot that made sense that people are loving? It's quite amazing. and
It
I love it.
is.
I'm
It is.
completely addicted. I have to write.
Oh,
I can't not write.
same. And like half the time it's like, well, it was my idea, and half the time it's like, well, the characters took my idea
Yeah,
and went places I did not anticipate with it. No regrets, but
yeah.
some of this was them.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
And yeah.
It's good fun. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
No, and that's wild. So you've written romantic fantasy, you've written dystopian,
Yeah.
and you've written epic. And you're writing now, you said you're trying to finish off the romantic one and the prequel.
So I've got the prequel. I've got the prequel there written, but it's not finished. I mean, as I said, it's probably 120, 130,000 words.
Yeah.
But it's not finished. And because I'm thinking about splitting it into 2 books, I'm now thinking about where do I split it? You know, where does it make sense? Because I've actually got 3 parts, because it's first when they're sort of, you know, because obviously this is how they became Sentinels and then what happened to them. So it's following this the Sentinels story, really. And so we meet them and they become cadets, how they become Rangers, and then the part 3 is being the Sentinel up to the finale of how the lady, you know, son does the bloodstone and brings down the veil, and everybody ends up in a tree or somewhere. So yeah, so it's actually 3 parts, so it's difficult to find the middle bit. So I think parts 1 and 2 are going to be at least in the first book, and then the second book will be all of the Sentinels, but I haven't made that decision yet. I'm just trying to figure out where it naturally falls, really.
Just ask the characters.
And then I have at least 3 other series bubbling. So every now and then, when I just want to do a bit of writing and not worry about it, I just go and do a bit of free writing in those series. In one of them, I just choose one of them, and so they're probably each at about 50,000. So they're all well started.
So these 3 other ones, are they in the same world, or are they new worlds?
New worlds.
All 3 of them?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. As I said, there's lots of ideas bubbling. It's just trying to cage them and say, wait your turn.
Yeah. I definitely know how that is.
Yeah. So Oblivion Gate is the one I'm working on, because that releases in July 1. So it's currently on pre-order, and I'm just releasing a book giveaway. So that should be live. Well, it is live. I just haven't communicated the link out yet, but it'll be on my Instagram or on my website. It's in my newsletter. If you were signed up to my newsletter, you got the early warning. You know where it is. You can go and
that's the romantic one, right?
Yes. So that's for a signed copy of Oblivion Gate, which is book 3 of the Soul Mist series.
And that one's finished and off to the editor and getting ready
it's come back from the editor, and now I'm addressing all of the things that they raised. So yes, just trying to tighten it up and polish it off, really.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then I think I'll go back to the prequel, finish the prequel, and maybe get that out at the end of the year if I'm lucky. Maybe the turn of the year. And then I will look at one of the epic fantasy ones and decide which one I'm going to focus on first.
Yeah. Is there one that's that you're drawn towards more than the others, or it's like equally like?
Yeah, I have 2 that I keep flipping between. I keep writing one and then I'll go and dabble in the other one. But I just love the characters. You know how you sort of build characters and all of a sudden you fall in love with these characters and you just want to see where they go.
That's why
one of them I'm sort of struggling a little bit with the beginning, because there's a major event that changes the way the story goes. It's figuring out how to do it with it making sense, because you fall in love with that main character and then there's a significant shift change, you know, and it's how you keep that continuity. So yeah, I haven't figured that plot line out yet, but working on it.
No, I know what you mean about having characters you fall in love with. I have one character that I love more than all the others. He's shown up in every book I've written. That's why they're all in the same world, so he can show up.
So you can keep him. That's good.
Yeah. So he can be in stories where he's not the main character who's having all the problems, or he's just a side character he can decide to go on this quest or be like, nope, I'm here for a cameo. I'm going to walk away now. Have fun.
I mean, Jerrol was my
Don't destroy character. The world so I can get another book someday.
I think Jerrol was my favorite character when I started, because he was my first main character, really. So, you know, he was the king thing. But then Balerion really crept up on me, because he's like an onion. The more you peel away, the more you learn about him. So there was so much learn about him, whereas Jerrol's arc is relatively flat because he's that hero. He was already, you know, a captain. He was already protective and loyal. He just had to learn what it meant to be the ladies' captain, and, you know, how to wake the Sentinels and still obviously then confront the Ascendants. But Valerian was always there, and he's that more emotionally unstable because of everything that he's gone through. And as you learn more about him, you understand why he did what he did and who he is. And so he was more interesting from a character arc development side. So you sort of get to love him just as much because he's going through so much as the books go on. So yeah, so they're both my favorite characters. It's very difficult to have one. You've got to have lots.
Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah. I have many favorites, but
It's like choosing your favorite child. You can't do it, you know.
Well, I mean, I guess if I had to, like, I could choose just one, or two. I could choose two. They're kind of a package deal, so I'd have to choose them both, or I might have to watch where I sleep at night.
Yes, yeah. Well, you got to be very careful as well because readers have their favorites. They do, and you got to be very careful who you kill off, who you don't kill off.
Yeah, I don't really kill off the character. I mean, even if I did, because of the cosmology, like the world that they've created, like death isn't really the end, because you just go to the Great Between realm, or you go to, well, you're going to the Great Between world. At some point, you may go to one of the other places, but you're going to the Great Between for a while.
Yeah.
And I have immortal characters who are back and forth in there anyways on other business, because it's like their version of purgatory, but it's also the middle realm between all the others. So if you want to go anywhere, you have to go to the Great Between. So and many of them, because of their immortality and the way the cosmology of this world, they can see and interact with, like, people, you know, those who have died and who are there. So it's not necessarily the end. And people have escaped from there. Yeah, there's been all sorts of hijinks. So it's not really the end.
That's quite interesting because in my Soul Myth series, again, I'm looking at, this is paranormal, so I've got angels and demons, and you've got the light and the dark, and you've got the angels and the devil, and so, and you've got this divide between the two, that you can only live in Angelicus if you've got a soul, but if you're soul stripped, you have to go to Eidolon because you'll die if you stay in Angelicus. So it's that divide between I was trying to show that not everything in the dark is bad and not everything in the light is good. You know, there are bad people in the light and there are good people in the dark, but you always assume that, you know, you're the demons because you're in Eidolon and you're in the shadow, rather than being in the sunshiny Peronia, which is all love and light, you know.
Yeah,
Corrupted people in the sunshine as there are in the
I have that too. Yep. I don't have the soul thing, because if you're an angel,
the first one is called Soul Breather, and really the story is around the fact that this woman can actually touch your soul because she can see the soul mist wrapped around the person. That person has a soul, and it's in the form of a soul mist which is wrapped around you as a golden soul mist. But she could take it, she could pull it away from you and take your soul and hold it, but she can also give it back. Whereas she's the only soul breather, and they don't know that she's a soul breather to begin with because the original soul breather was murdered, and now they only have soul singers who can take your soul, but they can't give it back. So for punishment, they take your soul away and banish you to Eidolon, but there's no way of redeeming yourself because there's no longer a soul breather to return your soul. So that's where the story starts, where one of the archangels has been fallen into Eidolon, lost his soul, and he's forgotten why he's there, and she helps him find his way back, or tries to anyway. But then that's part of the story. It's like, once you're lost in the shadows, does he even want to be saved? He's now part of the shadows. Does he want to get returned to Peronia? You know, so although she thinks she's trying to help him, does he really want help? You know?
Yeah. I definitely have stuff like that too in mind. But like, with angels and demons, humans have souls. They're very different. I went with the whole war early and way back in the beginning of creation, and those who fought on the wrong side went to hell, and they are banned from heaven.
Right.
So it's, instead of the soul thing, we've got like the ban. Yeah, the ban of heaven. Like, if you're banned, so just borrowed that kind of thing. Like Tolkien had the ban of the Valor, and so we have the same kind of similar. But hello, Kitty.
So this is Alfie. Yeah, so he's the inspiration for the Arafels. because he has this sleeping dragon pose, where they lay flat on the floor, their chin flat on the
Yeah.
floor, and the elbows out, and then his tail wrapped around. He just looks like a little dragon. So that was the idea.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
they do. They do. I mean, cats could be descended from dragons. We don't
they could
know.
be. Indeed.
They treat us like we are their staff. So,
Indeed. Yes, they are the boss.
yes, they could have definitely gotten that from their time way back as dragons. I mean, pterodactyls became birds, so I mean, anything's possible.
Wasn't it? So it makes me laugh when they call chickens like tiny dinosaurs, because they go back
They
so far,
are.
don't they?
Yeah, they are. That's where the dinosaurs went. They became birds. So
Yeah,
who's to say that there weren't dragons and that they became cats? Like, we don't
indeed.
know.
Yeah. Or any
We
form
don't
of,
know.
isn't it?
Some of those skeletons out there, might not be very big dinosaurs. They could be dragons. Just saying. We will never know until we can go in a time machine and find out.
Yes.
But that has its own hazards.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah.
Our imagination, isn't it? It can send us anywhere, and we can do
No,
anything.
that's the amazing thing. And like you said earlier, like you can give like a room full of authors the same prompt and we'll all write something different.
Yeah.
There'll be similarities between some and some will have nothing to do with each other.
At all.
Yeah, they'll be very dissimilar. I think that is so amazing. And I think it's also amazing that there's so many ideas out there that like we're never going to run out. Like, we can keep writing for years and we're both going to have more ideas and we know what to do with. And there's plenty of ideas for somebody else too. Like, I think that's like really awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think that's talked about enough, but I think that's just like absolutely amazing. Like how cool is the human mind that we're never going to run out of ideas.
Well, this is it. It's like when you go back and read one of your books, you think, I don't remember writing that. Did I write that?
Yeah.
That's like clever. I wrote that.
Who wrote this? Oh, me. Okay. I have no memory of this.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's weird how the brain works.
Yeah, like we struggle and toil to get the book out, and then a few years later, you're like, "Yeah, I vaguely remember writing this," and you cannot remember, how you stressed out about page 30 for 3 days and couldn't sleep because you couldn't get the story to work or the characters to do what they needed to do or the plot to make sense. And now it's like, this is really good. I don't remember any of this.
It got there in the end. It's worth all of the angst.
Yeah, and then we completely forget about the angst and do it all over again and have new angst. And we just keep doing it and keep forgetting about it, which I think is I think that's amazing. There's probably something in our brains that makes us forget all that angst. Otherwise, we would not want to keep writing.
We only remember the good bits. That's why we keep wanting to do it.
Yeah, the parts when it was really
all the many revisions and the many editing and
yeah. We just
have to read the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah, we just remember the part where it flowed and the words just came on, onto that screen like magic, and we don't remember later how we had to cut all that out because it made no sense. We just remember that exhilarating feeling.
Yeah, I do have a folder where if anything I cut, I do keep just in case I can reuse it somewhere else. Because I wrote all those words, so they might be applicable somewhere. But I must admit, I've cut quite a bit out of Oblivion Gate. I'm moving things around, and the file is getting big.
No, but sometimes, like if you end up needing to go back and do a prequel, sometimes some of those bits that couldn't fit elsewhere, or if you end up needing to write like an alternative story, like those bits can sometimes they're exactly what you need. Like I've used them later in different contexts because it was exactly what was needed. And I was like, well, I've already written this. I might as well just revise it to fit this thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
The
and there was one story I just could not fit into the book, so I wrote a novella. I had not planned to write the novella. This was back in the Sentinel series, but in book 3, Sentinel's Justice, there was just absolutely no way I could get the character where he needed to be to do this part of the story. So I ended up writing a novella in book 3.5, which is in between book 3 and 4, obviously. But it's just that, by the time we get to book 3, there was just an event that needed to happen, but it couldn't happen in book 4 because we're 2 years ahead. So it had to happen at the end of book 3, but he was never in the right place.
I see.
I wrote the novella, which is quite a nice little Well, it's a novella. It's like 35,000 words, so it's half a book, you know. But yeah, so I had to write a side story, but I think it's nice because readers, once they get hooked on a series and are hooked on a world, they want as many side stories as they can get. They just want more
Yeah.
and more and more, don't they? So
Yeah.
that's so
No,
yeah.
that's also that you're able to do it as a novella. I've tried writing novellas and they become full novels. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah, it does. I don't
yeah.
tend to write short, but at least this was an encapsulated event, so I could
Yeah.
have a start and a finish. I just needed to get it had to happen so that then when it got to book 4, that it had already happened, you know.
Yeah, and you could, yeah, and then you can just refer to people like, okay, if you want the event, that's
And
this.
go to
It's
that
in
book.
the
Yeah,
novella. Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
So
Yeah.
it's 6 books plus the novella and the short story in your newsletter.
Yeah, so there's 2 novellas. So there's one which is the prequel, which you can get for free if you sign up to my newsletter, which is Sentinels Stirring, which is set about 7 years before Sentinels Awaken. But it's where Jerrol and Talia first meet. So they're the main love interest in the book, that then flows through the whole series. So that's Sentinels Stirring. And then Sentinels Discovery is about the first 7 or 8 chapters from Balerian's point of view, and you can get both of those for free by signing up to my newsletter. And then I wrote a short story for my readers, for the subscribers at Christmas last year, and I'll probably write another one for Christmas this year, just as a free gift, just to those who are subscribed, and you only get it if you're subscribed at Christmas, sort of thing. So I don't know what
Okay.
I'm going to do with it at the moment, because obviously it's just sitting there at the moment and nobody can get it because it was in the Christmas newsletter. But I thought if I do a few short stories over a period of time, I could probably put them into like an ebook or something.
Yeah,
And
yeah, like an
put them all together, maybe.
yeah, anthology. I guess that would
Yeah,
be.
maybe just put them all together so it would make more sense. But at the moment, yeah, you need to be signed up at Christmas to get the Christmas story. So
Is
yeah,
the
not necessarily
Christmas
Christmas related. It's just released for a Christmas present, you know.
I see.
From
Is the
me to
Chris
you as a gift at Christmas.
Yeah, yeah, I do a Christmas story in my newsletter too. Usually it's the characters, whatever they want to do. They
Well, yeah, I
don't.
put a poll up on Instagram and in my Facebook group that said, "Who do you want to know more about? Who do you want me to write a story about?" And they chose 2 characters, so that was the book I wrote for Christmas, sort of thing.
So they choose the characters. You don't choose what's going to be in the short story. So you don't
No, I
know.
gave them a list of about 5 different options. I did put another if somebody was desperate for something else, but they chose Jennery and Alyssa. Which Jennery was Jerrol's friend that we met in that chapter, and he meets Alyssa, who's the daughter of the Guardian of Greenswatch, and it's their story. So that's what the readers chose. So that was what I wrote.
Oh wow. So the options that you're going to put out this year, is it going to be from Jerrol's the Sentinel stories, or is it going to be characters from another of your
Well, I could give
series?
them an option from the Soul Mist, but yeah, I have more ideas to write side stories for the Sentinels than I do the Soul.
Yeah.
Though saying that, I've already in one of the reviews somebody said I want Adriz and Falatha's story, which is the 2 sidekicks in Soul Mist series who are Demavrian's Oathsworn. So they've been searching for him because he's been missing in Eidolon for all these years, like 50 years. And they've been searching for him, and not been able to find him. So it's like their story, their backstory. They want to know now, like what were they doing for that 50 years, and what did
Yeah,
they think when they found
seriously.
them? Yeah.
How do you
So
not find someone for 50 years? Like they really must have been hiding.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, as I said, it's in the shadowy world. It's not as easy to find things as you think it would be. So yeah, but yeah, so I could give them as an option and see who they choose. You know, though the Sentinels
Yeah.
have been out longer, so and I think they have a bigger following than the Soul Mist. But hopefully, the Soul Mist will become just as popular.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome for you to have 2 popular book series.
Yeah,
That's what we all hope for. We hope all
yeah,
our book babies go out and find their readers.
yeah,
That is all of our goals out
it is.
there.
And I'm slowly doing the audiobooks, but they're expensive and they take time. So
For which
um,
series?
So
Both of them?
I've got 4. So I've just released the 4th book in the Sentinels. So the first 4 are in audio. Sentinels Across Time is just released just a week or so ago. So that's just finished. And the first book in the Soul Mist is out, and the second book is being recorded. So that'll be out probably. Where are we? April, May, June, probably beginning of June timeframe, maybe.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so that'd be 6 in audio, but it's very difficult. I find it quite difficult to find where the audio readers are or the audio listeners are as to getting folks to be aware that the books are available in audio. You know.
Well, I'm an audiobook listener. I didn't know I didn't know they were on Audible.
Well, this is the trouble, isn't it? Yeah, it's like, how do you get the word out that they're available? You know. So I mean, I've got it all over my Instagram and my website, but if they don't go, if readers aren't going there, they're not going to see it. So
Yeah. And Audible's
Audible is difficult to find, and as well as it's all about awareness, isn't it? If folks don't know our name, they're not going to search for you, so they're never going to find your books. It's just purely accidental, really. That's the frustrating thing.
And like Audible's recommendation engine, I've been a member of Audible since like somewhere between early 2010s, and their recommendation engine has always been horrible, and it's like never gotten better. Amazon is supposedly good at recommendations, but all I get are recommendations from the traditionally published books. Like that's always what's recommended.
Yeah, I mean that's what's frustrating, isn't it? I mean the Sentinels are in Kindle Unlimited, but everything else I've got is wide. But I took all the
it's on Google Play because it is much easier I've found to find indie authors audiobooks on Google Play.
Yeah, my audiobooks are wide. You can get it on Google, Kobo Plus is in Chirp, wherever. So yeah, the audiobooks are wide everywhere, but the ebook is in Kindle Limited, so that's the only place you can get the ebook of the Sentinel series.
Yeah.
But Soul Mist is wide, and Harmony, as I said, it's in Kindle for 90 days, and then I'll just take it wide just so that people can get it wherever they want to get it from.
Yeah, no, I have found with Google Play, like you just need to find like one indie fantasy author's audiobooks, and then the recommendations will be other indie fantasy books, which is great.
Oh, that's good. That's good to know.
Yeah, I mean that's been my experience, and it's not just fantasy. Like I also read mystery thrillers. And Google Play is really good at. Because this is one of the things that drives me nuts about Audible is you finish the book, it is book whatever in a series.
Yep.
The next thing, then there's all these recommendations for stuff that is not the next book. And on Google Play, that's not the case at all. It's like, oh, okay, you've read X book in the series, and especially if you read more than one book in the series, it just works the same way with ebooks and with audiobooks. It's like, all your recommendations are the next books in the series, which is fabulous because on Audible, I'm constantly searching. But on Google Play, I don't have to search. It's all right there. I can just click the next one, which I think is awesome. I wish that Audible had that because sometimes you read something and you don't know that it's a series. If there's, because it's not
obvious. Yeah.
It's not obvious, it's nothing in the blurb. There's nothing on the book cover, and some book covers are hard to read on a phone screen anyway. So, and there's like, Audible doesn't have this of, book X of whatever, which drives me nuts that they don't number the series. They don't make it easy to.
I always remember because I donated some of my books to the library, just to my local one, but I always put the number on the spine. And she said, "Oh, I wish all authors did that." She said, "They make it easy for them to put in order on the shelf." Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm bad. I don't do that on my own. I don't do that on all of my own books. On series that are pretty, that the characters go from book to book to book in order. Those I number. Yeah, I have another series where they bounce around, and sometimes we'll be writing a book that, oh, by the way, this should be read before these other ones that came out 3 years ago because characters decided it needs to be this way.
Yes.
So that one is not numbered, but each story it's more like a traditionally published fantasy series because each book does end, and so they're like you get the whole adventure. In that book, and there's not usually any sort of cliffhanger or anything. So they're they could be read as standalones. If you read them as a series, and you get the whole progression of all the characters and all their insanity and the increasing number of magical creatures who get involved in their lives because humans don't know what they're doing. We need to help them out.
They need all what we can get, don't they?
Yeah, that's what the magical creatures think. Humans would really like it if the magical creatures didn't, butt into their business. because some of the magic creatures are
absolutely.
psychic and they can read your mind, and they know that you're keeping secrets from these two people, and they know those two people keeping secrets from you, and you'd all be able to defeat the bad guy a lot easier if y'all would just spill your secrets.
Yeah.
They're going to make you.
It's always communication. They don't communicate.
Yeah. Yeah, but they have, reasons, like societal reasons, class
Yeah.
reasons for not. Like, they're afraid to lose, in one person's instance, they're in their class, they're not really allowed to have children, and this one has it. Like, there's fear of losing things of people,
Yeah.
and valuable and opinions of them, and like there's real fear behind it. They're not miscommunicating because they don't feel like talking about it. Like, there's high stakes involved in this miscommunication, and magic creatures are like, I don't understand you people. just let's get all the secrets out, which causes
like no.
Yeah. So always fun. Always fun. This has been fantastic. Is there anything else that you want to say about any of the things that we've been talking about before we come to a close?
No, just as again, if you want to find out more, then my website is helengarraway.com, and you can sign up to my newsletter there, and all the details of my books are on there, and links to my blog where I do author interviews and I do book reviews. So again, I think one of the most wonderful things about writing is the community, isn't it?
Yes.
And the indie writing community is quite amazing. So everybody is so supportive. So you always want to try and give something back as well to support other indie authors, because it's tough out there, and
it is.
We all need the help we can get. So you can find all of that on my website.
And we'll have links in the description or the show notes, depending on where you're watching. So you can just click the link.
Find it all there.
Yeah, we don't have to spell it out and make you write things down and do labor. No, we've made it very easy for you. It's in the show notes in the description. But yeah, that's why we do the podcast, to try and help other indie fantasy authors. And I also just love talking about books, and I love when authors read books to me. So thank you for that, because I love that. That is my reward for doing this. And this has been another episode of Fantasy Lore and More. I'm Melinda Kucsera. I've been your host. And today we had Helen Garraway, and we talked about Sentinals Awaken and Soul Mists and so many other things and fluffy dragon cat hybrid things that now I want one.
Yeah, that's so cute.
Adopt one. But only if it'll breathe fire at a certain neighbor who drives me crazy. Don't tell them I said that.
I'm sorry, they don't breathe fire.
Okay. Did they at least like I don't know, meow or make some sort of cute sound? Or...
Yeah, they could just pop here and there and just annoy them that way, just popping into their space without warning.
Okay, I still want one. They sound amazing. What were they called again? Alfies?
Arafels.
Arafels. Okay, I want an Arafel for Christmas.
I think you're either Team Arafel or you're Team Darien. Either one or the other.
What's the Darien?
I always forget to say I do have a Patreon as well. So if anybody is interested in following my Patreon, you'll find me as Helen Garraway author there as well. And there's a Team Arafel, a Team Darien, and a Team Sentinel. So you can choose your level and go from there.
That's awesome. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Have a great day or a great night wherever you are. We'll be back with another fantasy author, another fantasy book next time. So thank you.